Okay, بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا ما تعلمنا وزدنا بفضلك علما وتعليما إنك على كل شيء قدير. Okay, so it says يحرم البول على ما okay, here it is unlawful to urinate on anything edible, bones, anything deserving of respect, a grave or a mosque or even if a receptacle. Aha, that's where we were. Did you manage to research it, Sheikh Musa?
In the receptacle?
About passing wind in the masjid.
Um,
So there's basically the issue. The question is here is the following: is that obviously so there's two things here: bones and anything deserving respect and edible. How do we know that? The Prophet ﷺ forbade us to use bones to eat to clean ourselves with. Why? The Prophet ﷺ explained that the jinn, that's their food, that's their zad, that's their food. How do the jinn eat bones? I have no idea. How does it work? I have no idea. But they were basically the jinn made this pact with the Prophet ﷺ, and we were told you cannot clean yourself with bones. So you can infer from that you can't urinate or defecate onto bones. And you can infer from that you cannot urinate or defecate on anything that deserves respect or that is food. Right? It's wasteful, it's etc. Um, and then on a grave, that's disrespectful. So then the question with the mosque. Okay, the question with a mosque is you can't relieve yourself in a mosque. Does that mean you can't put filth into a mosque? Like you can't go and take some filth from outside and put it inside the mosque? Yes. Okay. Is the issue though making the mosque filthy, or is the issue disrespecting the mosque? So that's why he says even if in a receptacle, right? Even if you urinated into a container in the mosque, you still can't do that. Okay. So then the issue was then, what about intentionally passing wind in the mosque? Because if the issue is you can't disrespect it, and if you can't, excuse me, if you cannot relieve yourself in the mosque, what about intentionally passing wind in a mosque? Is that the same or not? Were you able to find anything, Musa?
no, I was not.
Okay, I'm pretty sure anyway. It's in Hashid Bujayrami on the Iqna'. Khatib, he talks about it, and other people have something to say there as well. But anyway, we'll discuss that later on. Okay. So it is unlawful to urinate or defecate with the front or rear towards the direction of prayer when outdoors and when there is no barrier to screen one. Though it is permissible when outdoors or indoors within 1.5 meters of a barrier at least 32 centimeters high or in a hole that deep. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ forbade us to urinate or defecate facing the Qibla. So number one, when we say facing the Qibla, we mean the Qibla itself, not the general direction. So you say, what is the direction? Oh, it is 281 degrees, right? That's the actual angle, okay? Fine. So what if I do 282? You're not facing the Qibla. What about a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right? You're not facing the Qibla anymore. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, there is no barrier in front of you. You're in the middle of this open wasteland, a flat plain, flat prairie, a flat desert. There is no barrier in front of you. And you're relieving yourself facing the Qibla or with your back to Qibla. That is haram. But what if you are indoors? For example, there is a bathroom. Okay. Or let's step back a little bit. Or there's a barrier between you and the Qibla. So what do you mean by a barrier? So well, there's a mountain, isn't there? Habibi, the mountain is 20 miles away from you. So what do you mean by a barrier? We mean something that's roughly close to you and has some height. Okay, what does that mean then? We mean the same thing that could be a barrier in prayer. So when you say you have a sutra in prayer, right? Are you considered praying towards somebody, or is there a barrier between you and that person? Well, you have to be a certain kind of distance, right? Basically, the area in which you do sujood. So if you have a person stand up, go into sujood, from his toes to his head, how long is that? It's about 1.5 meters, approximately, about 1.5 meters. That's the barrier, okay? When you do sujood, right, between you, it's basically that's where the barrier is. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ, when he did sujood in front of the Kaaba, he was right next to the Kaaba. Okay, so that kind of distance. We're talking about that kind of distance between you where you're standing, or where you are, you're relieving yourself. Okay, we're going to say between you and that wall, tree, stone, boulder, bag is approximately a meter and a half. And again, I say approximately because, again, we're just making assumptions here, right? We're just extrapolating, saying, when you have this barrier and prayer, it should be close to you, same kind of distance, etc. It's kind of estimations, right? So we just put it in our mind that we're kind of making estimations here. Similarly, it has to be about 32 centimeters high, right? In Arabic, call it thulu thay dhira', right? Which is basically the kind of average height of the back of a wooden saddle of a camel, right? That's a kind of like a if you can imagine they had these like wooden saddles that you kind of sit back on a camel. You take that off, that's about the kind of approximate height it's going to be. So it's not like a tiny pebble, right? There's something there, a small handbag, right? But you have your rucksack. You're hiking, there's a big rucksack there. There's a boulder. There's a there's a little bush. There's a tree, something like that. Okay. So you have something that is 32 centimeters roughly and higher, and it's roughly between a meter and a half of you. That's considered barrier. 3 meters away, 4 meters away, 20 meters away, that's not considered a barrier. A little stone on the floor is not considered a barrier. Okay. Now, there's an exception here, which is inside a purpose-built place. So now if you could imagine, you have this purpose-built bathroom, okay? This purpose-built bathroom is really long. So when you go in, it's like 20 meters. So when you go to the bathroom and it's facing bang on the Qibla. So this person goes to the bathroom. When they go to the bathroom, they are facing directly in the direction of Qibla. Okay, number one. Number two, there's this huge gap between them and the door, for example. So when they go to the bathroom, say, well, what am I supposed to do? Like take a bag with me, take a bin or something like that, like a trash can to like as a barrier. Like, how does this work? So we say no, because this is purpose built. Because this is purpose built, that distance is overlooked, right? That distance is overlooked. So even if it doesn't really fulfill the conditions because it's purpose built, it is now no longer considered haram. Okay, it's like makruh tahriman, or yeah, no, sorry, it is khilaf al-awla, like not the best thing to do. That's all. It's no longer sinful. Okay, so we have normal situation, open plain, open desert. You need to have a boulder, a tree, a bag, something like that. Uh, if you're going to face the Qibla, or what was I going to say? Or if you're in a purpose-built place, then it's overlooked if it's not that close to you, if it's not high enough. But it's not ideal, but it's overlooked because it's purpose-built. That was a bathroom built like that. Does that make sense? Yeah. So here it mentions that it's offensive. If the walls are farther than the one, it says that it's still offensive. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that's actually correct, right? So Sheikh Musa, if you have a look in the Sheikh Taha's commentary, is it actually offensive or is it khilaf al-awla? I think there's a debate on it. Okay, but it's not haram. Okay. Now I have a question for you. Okay, why all of these rules if you could just turn 1 degree to the right and 1 degree to the left? You know what I'm saying? Like you have to have has to be this high, has to be this. If you just turn 1 degree to the right, 1 degree to the left, right? It will be halal, right? Is everyone following me? Muhammad Hashir, Labisi, Omar, Abdullah. You know what I'm
Yes,
saying? So the
yes.
question is like, okay, it's got to be this high, it's got to be this distance, but yeah, but if I just turn 1 degree to the right or 1 degree to the left, right? It wouldn't be a problem, right? So what do you think?
That's if you are following the Shafi'i standard, yes, 1 degree to the right.
Hmm.
But
Do
if
you
you are following,
are you challenging the relied upon position in the Shafi school, Sheikh Muhammad Hashir?
no,
Okay, so we're not in a position to challenge anything, right? Who are you and who am I to challenge anything, right? However, you might ask the question. Kind of sounds a little bit odd, right? Sounds a bit strange. You might ask the question, perhaps there are other positions in the Shafi school. Perhaps there are other positions in the other madhahib, right? And then lo and behold, you find other scholars say, yeah. So of our great scholars, Al-Muhibb ad-Din al-Tabari, Muhibb ad-Din al-Tabari, he was like, look, guys, when you face the Qibla, right, it would make no sense, right? It would make no sense if you could just turn a little bit right, a little bit to the left, and then suddenly it's halal, you know? So what he says is Muhammad din Tabari of our, early scholars. He's at the same time as Imam Nawawi, actually, similar time, a little bit before him. He said, look, you have a window, kind of a 90-degree window, so to speak, right? That's called the jiha, the general direction. You can't face that general direction, right? So if you're going to relieve yourself in the open, there's a general direction forward, right, and general direction back. That neither of those can be the Qibla. There's actually like 180 degrees, right? If you think about a 90-degree window, a 90-degree window one side, and a 90-degree window the other side. If you're going to relieve yourself in the total open area with no barrier, you have to what's it called? Put it in this to your right or left. That's what the hadith says. لكن شرقوا أو غربوا. Turn to the east or turn to the west, right? So we say, so technically speaking, if you turn 1 degree to the right or 1 degree to the left, obviously you are doing what the Prophet said, right? But he says, come on, guys, let's be a bit reasonable. It's this general area. So Ibn Muhibb ad-Din al-Tabari, he was stricter when it comes to facing the Qibla and urinating or defecating facing the Qibla, and therefore he is more lenient when it comes to what? He's going to be more lenient when it comes to
Direction of the Qibla.
direction of the Qibla in prayer, right?
Yeah.
So these two things are connected. These two things are connected. If we're going to be stricter here, we're going to be more lenient there. Whereas in the Shafi school, the actual school, is we're pretty lenient here, meaning if you just turn a little bit right, a little bit left, you'll be fine. But in prayer, you can't turn a little bit to the right, a little bit to the left. You can't. You couldn't follow somebody who disagrees with you. If I'm traveling in the desert and I say, no, it's a little bit to the right, and Muhammad Hasha says it's a little bit to the left, we can't pray behind each other because we don't agree on the direction of the Qibla. I think he's not praying in the right direction. He thinks I'm not praying in the right direction. So we can't pray together. But if you follow that position of Muhammad din Tabari, it's like, no, it's different. Come on, guys. There's a spec, there's a general direction. As long as you agree in the general direction, it's fine. Okay, does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, but remind ourselves, there's a big difference between A, finding something strict and practically wanting to follow another position. C, questioning something from a purely academic and genuine point of view. And then 3, finding something silly and saying this is right and this is wrong. We are not in a position to say right and wrong. Right? None of us, myself included, I'm in a position to say the Shafi school is right or the Shafi school is wrong. Right? So this is the only person who can say that is a mujtahid, somebody who's spent the whole life, studied everything inside out, back to front, right? And that's not me and that's not you, right? So an expressing opinion, that position sounds strict, that position sounds wrong, that position sounds right, we have no license to do that. No license to do that whatsoever. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great. That's that. It is obligatory to clean oneself of every impure substance coming from one's front or rear, though not from gas, dry worms or stones, or excrement without moisture. So when you say you have to clean yourself to come to the bathroom, what do you mean? Do you mean you're obliged to clean yourself because something came out? Or do you mean you're obliged to clean yourself if you have filth on you? So the answer is if you have filth on you. So something came out without any moisture. On its way out, it did not make anything filthy. Okay? Then you don't have to do anything because nothing became filthy. So washing yourself or cleaning yourself when you go to the bathroom is not a ritual thing. It is a practical thing. Meaning, is the najasa there? Yes or no? If there's no najasa, you don't have to do anything. Does that make sense? Yeah? Everyone's
Yes.
So that's why we say if there's dry worms or stones, gas, for example, gas does not leave anything, right? So this is a classic example where a classic example where not learning the deed becomes hard. You will find people, for example, I've heard of this, people whenever they pass wind, they go and wash their private parts, right? So now they've made the deen difficult. So now what happens is they didn't have the opportunity to wash themselves, so they say, oh, I can't pray. So then they don't pray. Okay? So jahl, not knowing the deen, makes the deen harder. It does not make the deen easier, right? It's like being in the dark. Would you prefer to know that there's a tiger, a tiger and a leopard and a wolf and a bear in your back garden trying to kill you, or would you prefer to be in the dark and not know if they're there or not? Right? So this is jahl. Jahl is being in the dark. When you learn the deen and say, "Oh, I know the hukam, I know what I have to do, I know what I don't have to do." In marriage, right? People don't know how easy marriage is. And so what happens? They commit zina. It happens. Religious people you see at the masjid, they commit zina. Say, why are you committing zina? It's not that difficult. Just get married. Oh, but this, that, and all these things in their mind, it's really, really complex. Not that complex. It's not that complex. Right? It's not just a complex thing. Um, Divorce. People live together and they're actually divorced. Because what? They don't know things. So very important. We have to have ilm. Ilm makes your life easy. It does not make your life complex, right? It is obligatory. Okay, fine. So there it says, stones suffice to clean oneself. Stones meaning anything solid, right? So you have something that's solid, something that's dry, like a stone, like a leaf, like toilet paper, something like that. They stones suffice to clean themselves, though it is best to follow this with water, right? The verse of the Quran, إن الله يحب الذين إن الله يحب التوابين ويحب المطهرين. Allah loves those who are always making tawbah to Allah and those who are always cleaning themselves. That the verse was revealed concerning people who wash their private parts as opposed to just wipe their private parts. Okay, so it is valid just to wipe, but it is sunnah to wash, right? And so this is again what we've been talking about before is when is it okay to forget Allah? When is it okay to be ghafil? Never. So you go to the bathroom with an intention, and you go to the bathroom and you say in your mind, you're thinking about the verse of the Quran, Inna Allah yuhibbu at-tawwabin yuhibbu al-mutahhirin, and you're doing ibadah. You say, I'm going to wash instead of wipe, because what? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves those people, special people, right? Um, so though it is better it's better to follow this with washing with water. So the ideal thing is you wipe and then wash. The second best option is to wash. The third best option is to wipe. Okay, so wipe then wash, that's ideal. Wash and then just wiping. Anything that can take the place of stones that is solid, pure, physically removes the filth. It's not too smooth, for example, to remove the filth. Is not something that deserves respect or veneration, like food, like bones, right? In reality, these two things, veneration and edible, is the same thing in reality. They're the same kind of concept, right? So the idea that you can't use, the Prophet said you can't use bones because it's the food of the jinn. Therefore, you can't use food because it deserves respect. Therefore, you couldn't use, for example, may Allah protect us all, a hadith book, right? So somebody used something of that that deserves veneration, that wouldn't count. If you wiped yourself with it, it wouldn't count. You'd still have to use water. Okay? So if you use something that was, etc. To clean oneself without having to fall out with water. But it's obligatory to wash oneself if one has washed away the filth with a other liquid other than water or something impure. So you, for example, you used wet wipes that had alcohol on them. You used some kind of disinfectant as opposed to water, right? You just used wet wipes as opposed to water. So you just wiped your private parts with water. What happens now? You now have to follow that up with water. You're not clean, okay? So it's totally fine to practically remove filth with wet wipes, but, okay, but you then have to follow it up with water. So it has to be washed, okay? So you've used something other than water, or there's some other liquid there, or you've used some water, but you haven't cleaned yourself properly with water, right? So you can imagine somebody does this the following. They wash themselves 80% with water. Most of the filth is there. It's gone. And then they use toilet paper. Okay? That doesn't count. Okay, why? Because you either have to do A or B. So you either don't use any water and use your tissue paper or the like, and therefore the remaining filth that's still on your private parts is overlooked. But if you use water 80% and then you use toilet paper, that doesn't suffice. It doesn't suffice. So now you're going to have to use water. So now you're in this awkward situation where you're basically clean but not. You have to go and find some water somewhere or wherever it is and clean yourself again. Does that make sense? So you either, if you're going to use water, you do the whole job with water. Make sure you're totally clean with water. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, everyone's following? Sister Olabisi, Omar, Sheikh Mahmoud. I know Sham's driving. Ahmadullah, yeah. Sister Amina. Okay. Okay. One has become soiled with filth from a separate source. So, for example, some other filth went onto your private parts from somewhere else. Some blood went onto there, some vomit, right? The person was relieving themselves and they vomited a bit onto themselves. Okay, and a tiny bit of the vomit went onto their private parts. So is it the same kind of thing? No, it's a different kind of thing. Different kind of filth. One filth is normal, the other filth is not normal. The filth that is normal is overlooked and it can be cleaned with toilet paper, etc. The filth that's not normal, meaning vomit or blood or something else, that's not overlooked. Okay, one's waste has removed from where it exited, reaching another part of one's person or has dried. So it's dried, it's been there for a long time. It's gone beyond the normal area, right? And all of this in reality is based on the verse of the Quran. فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ. Whoever is forced. So here, what we're looking in reality in the Sharia is saying, look, you're not forced, but it's very difficult. So the Sharia treats difficulty sometimes as duress. So that the fact that it applies to everybody, it's a normal thing that they're going to have filth in this area. It's kind of treated as if it's like an exception. So just like the example where you can eat pork if you are dying. Similarly, here you're departing from the default, which is washing, and you're going to wiping as a non-default. So, but the condition that Allah mentions in the Quran, فَمَنِ اضْطُرَّ, whoever is forced, غَيْرَ بَاغٍ وَلَا عَادٍ, he does not seeking to eat, to do the haram, right? وَلَا عَادٍ doesn't go beyond the limit, meaning you didn't eat more haram than you needed to. So the principle in fiqh, a number of principles here, but one is النادر لا حكم له, something that is strange, that has no unique special consideration, right? So blood getting there, urine going onto your leg, feces going outside of the inner buttocks, that's not normal. So because it's not normal, it doesn't have that special consideration, right? And الضرورات تقدر بقدرها, which is really part of the same thing, that duress will only be recognized, difficulty will only be recognized in its actual extent. So it is not normally difficult to avoid urinating on your foot. So therefore, somebody urinated on their foot, they'd have to wash it with water, and they couldn't just wipe it. Okay? Same kind of ideas. It's dried now, and that's going beyond. So dried filth is stuck to your body more, and that's not normal. So therefore, it's a worse situation. There's more filth on you, and for a reason that's not normal. So therefore, it's not overlooked. Or one's waste has moved from where it exited or has dried. Or if feces spread beyond the inner buttocks, meaning or urine moved beyond the head of the male private parts, though if they do not pass beyond them, stones suffice. So it's moved, but it's still within that same area, that's fine. Okay, everyone's following? It is obligatory to remove, to both remove the filth and to wipe 3 times, even if one is enough. So the person using toilet paper, and after wiping themselves with the toilet paper, there is no more filth to remove. Okay? They are still obliged to wipe another 2 times. you're still obliged to wipe another 2 times. It would not count. If you just wipe once, even if all the filth is gone, it's not enough, right? So you wipe 3 times, right? Meaning, so 3 times, not with the self same side of the object, because that would mean putting more filth on yourself. What I mean is, for example, 3 different pieces of toilet paper, 3 sides of a piece of toilet paper, 3 sides of a stone, such that each stone, toilet paper, leaf is coming to your body clean and removing more filth, if there's any filth to remove. Does that make sense? And that all 3 wipes cover that whole area. Not that you cleaned one part with one and then another part with another. No, that there was the whole area where the filth is has been wiped 3 times. Okay? If 3 times does not remove it, oh, then it's obligatory to do more. So you have to do 2 things. You have to remove the filth that you could remove, and you have to do 3. If you can remove the filth that you can remove with toilet paper with less than 3, you have to keep wiping till 3. And if you do 3 wipes, but there's still filth that you can remove with toilet paper and the like, then you have to be removed. So obviously, if you don't use water or something like that, there will always be filth there. What I mean is removing filth that you can actually remove. Does it make sense? Yeah, everyone's following?
Yes.
Okay. Then it says an odd number of strokes is recommended. One should wipe from front to back on the right side with the first piece, similarly wipe the left with the second, wipe both sides and the anus with the third. Each stroke must begin at a point of skin that is free from purity, meaning you're covering the whole area that has filth on it, right? So that means you're going to begin from somewhere that's pure, right? So you have to do 3 wipes. He says to clean yourself with your left hand is offensive, as is to clean your nose with your left hand, right? Unless, for example, you have a problem, there's a practical issue that you need to do, right? So, so what does it mean? It means you touch your private parts with your left hand. If you need to touch your private parts, you clean your private parts with your left hand, etc. You clean your nose with your left hand. It is best to clean oneself of filth before ablution. So, if you're walking around with filth on you on your private parts or on your body, it is totally unrelated to wudu. Wudu is a ritual purification, and cleaning your private parts and removing filth in your body is a physical purification. They are not related. Just like if you get filth on your body, does it break your wudu? No, right? If you get filth in your body, you jump into a pool of vomit, or it doesn't have anything to do with your wudu. One is a ritual state, the one is a physical state, right? One is to do with you have filth on you. The other one is, are you in a state of ritual purity or impurity? Okay, so if you went to the bathroom without cleaning yourself, went and made wudu, it would still count, right? But that's not a good thing to do. Though if one waits until after to clean, the ablution is nevertheless valid. If one waits until after one's dry ablution to clean away filth, the dry ablution is not valid. It's a different issue. So in tayammum, it's different. Tayammum is not real purification, right? So with tayammum, you have to be ready to pray before you can make tayammum. Meaning, prayer time has come in. Anything that's going to stop me praying is gone, including najasa. You have najasa on you, you have to remove that najasa. Okay? So here's the question then. What if I need to make tayammum? Okay, what if I need to make tayammum and I don't have any water, okay? So I can't clean my private parts with water, of course. And I need to make tayammum because I don't have any water. And I don't have anything to clean myself with either. I'm in a prison cell, an empty prison cell. There is nothing to pick up whatsoever, nothing to clean yourself with whatsoever. Okay, what does that mean then? That means that how on earth are you supposed to make tayammum? Okay,
You don't make time.
so we're going to ask Sheikh Musa and Sheikh Muhammad Hashir to go back to تحرية تنقيح هذا باب and find out that what do we do? in a scenario where you cannot remove filth from your body, how do you make tayammum? Okay, there's a khilaf between Ibn Hajar and Ramli on this issue. Okay, if you can't remove filth from your body, what are you supposed to do? Right? Can you make tayammum? Can you not make tayammum? What do you do? Okay, that's another discussion. Okay, everyone's clear so far?
Yes.
Yeah? Abdullah, Sham's driving. Sheikh Mahmoud, Omar, Alabisi, Musa, Mr. Amina. Okay, great. Fantastic. So we have to understand this is an ilmi class, okay? It's a technical class. This is not a khutbah by or a YouTube recording from some exciting sheikh. We're here to do complex, difficult things. And so we have to pay attention. We have to ask if we don't understand. This is part of the haqq. That not that I have on you, but that the book has on you. The book has a haqq that if you don't understand something, you have to say, stop, I don't understand. Okay? So now we're going on to ghusl. When do you have to make ghusl? When somebody is in janaba. It says a purificatory bath is obligatory for a male when sperm exits from him. We discussed that, I think, in the other class, right? So we said sperm is something that comes out either with orgasm or something comes out in spurts, or it has the smell or texture of sperm, right? So as we know, sperm like is alive, right? It has sperm cells in it. So it has certain smell, certain texture, etc. Right? So this person sees this thing on them that is clearly sperm, even if they didn't experience an orgasm, even if they didn't experience something coming out in spurts, that's considered. They have to make ghusl. Or two, the head of the male private parts entering the female private parts. Okay? So whether or not the ejaculation happens, right? So just the mere fact of penetration, you're going to have to make ghusl. And then it says here in the Arabic, and Sheikh Noor kind of excludes it. He says, قبل كان so it says, I mean, so في أي فرج, any private parts, كان قبلا أو دبرا, whether it is front private parts or back private parts. So somebody has anal sex, for example, with their spouse or in a homosexual relationship or in a rape or whatever it is, that's all haram. All of that is haram. But the question is, do they have to make ghusl? Yes, they do. Right? Yes, they do. ذكرا كان ذكرا أنثى, whether that be male or female. ولو بهيمة, even if they did bestiality. Somebody had intercourse with an animal, right? Somebody had put their private parts inside the private parts of an animal, they're going to have to make a ghusl, right? Why do you think Sheikh Noor did not translate that? There's a whole thing here. There's a whole note from, I don't know who it's from Ta. I don't know what Ta is. Is it supposed to be a noon? But why do you think he didn't translate that? Imagine you're doing Introduction to Sharia Law at Harvard Law School, and it says you have to have a shower if you sleep, if a man rapes a boy. But if a woman has intercourse with a monkey, she has to make ghusl. What do you think the normal person is going to respond to that book? How are they going to respond to the book?
You're gonna think we're crazy.
You're a bunch of crazy. You're just insane, right? You're just like
Yeah.
totally weird. Oh my God, this is weird. So you're just like, so Sheikh Noor's like, do I need to translate this? Do I not need to translate that? You know, like, yeah, just leave it out. It's okay, right? You know, imagine like title, you know, the 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 ritual celebration of rape, of animal rape. And it's like, look, Muslims, whenever they sleep with their pet animals, they celebrate by getting baptized. You know, it's like, bro, I'm not saying that, but it's very easy to abuse things like that, right? It's very easy to abuse things. People misunderstand things. Arguably, you could say, why on earth is this book translated into English anyway? Because there's a lot of content in it that is confusing, right? A lot of content that's confusing, right? And that could be misrepresented, misunderstood, right? So someone says, I've been reading the Reliance, like, don't read the Reliance. Unless you read it with a Sikh teacher. You need to contextualize it, right? And so many of the Salaf, they were very much against recording anything. Do not record hadiths, don't record anything. Because this deen should be through talaqqi, should be through receiving things. What is a concept, what is the context of this information? I understand the word, but what does it mean in the big picture? Are we trying to say it's okay? Are we trying to say it's good? Are we trying to say this? Are we trying to say that? Does that make sense? So it's very important to have that, right? Um, uh, it's a very important thing to talk about. In fact, I'll give you an example now, okay? So it says it's obligatory for a female when sexual fluid exits from her. So for a female, right, unlike male private parts, a female's private parts is much more analogous to like a mouth, in that it's like basically effectively the kind of equivalent of saliva, right? There's a mucous membranes and it's effectively open. So for a female, it's very normal. They're going to have sexual, so you're going to have secretions, right? Time of the month, disease, sexual stimulation is very normal for women, right? So even outside of her menstrual flow, she might put a pad in because these things happen, okay? So when we say sexual fluid for a female, we don't mean something that could come through sexual stimulation, right? So a woman, for example, she might have had a dream or she might have been sexually stimulated or had thoughts, and she notices that more things have come out of her private parts. Okay? So they say, does that cause for ghusl? No, it doesn't. What we mean again is something that comes out in spurts. Some women experience orgasms like that. That's actually something will actually spurt out of them. Okay? That can happen. So something came out with a spurt, or something suddenly came out upon orgasm. So there's a difference between being sexually aroused, sexual thoughts, whatever, and versus orgasm. So something came out suddenly upon orgasm. That's what we mean by sexual fluid. Okay? So for a woman, it's quite possible that she orgasm and nothing A spurts out, or B, nothing suddenly comes out. So because it's not the same, right? So for a man, this is actually sperm coming out, right? Which is part of the reproductive system, part of the reproductive process. Whereas for a female, this sexual fluid is not part of like her ovaries are not coming out, are they? Right? That's not what's happening. So it's a very different kind of process, right? So it's quite possible for a woman if she's being sexually active, right, that sexually stimulated and she reaches orgasm, that she doesn't actually make ghusl because nothing spurts out, yeah, that's possible. So that can happen there. Okay, and then it says it's obligatory for a female, and then the head of the male private parts entering the female private parts. So through mere penetration, ghusl is obligatory. Number 3, after her menstrual period, right? So after her menstrual period, she needs to make ghusl. After her postnatal lochia, right? Her postnatal bleeding stops. After that, she has to make, when it stops finally, she has to make ghusl, right? Okay, so then a whole section again, Sheikh Noor does not translate. Why? Because it's weird or rare. Okay? So he says, وَلَوْ رَأَى مَنِيًّا فِي ثَوْبٍ أو فراش ينام فيه مع من يمكن كونه منه ندب لهما الغسل ولا يجب. Okay? So these two guys, they share clothes. These two guys, they sleep in the same bed at different times. So after both of them have slept in that bed, or both of them have worn that clothes, they notice semen in those clothes or semen in that bed, right? So you can imagine why you would not translate this, because it seems, as the phrase goes, this seems super sus, right? But it's just talking about the scenario. So there is basically evidence that one of them definitely is in janaba. Okay, so there's Mr. A and Mr. B. One of them is in janaba. Okay, so are they obliged to make ghusl? The answer is no, because each one doesn't know that he's made ghusl. And al-yaqeen la yazulu bi-shakk. Certainty should not be lifted by doubt. So therefore, you can assume the default is you don't have to make ghusl. So in A's mind, he doesn't know that he has to make ghusl. And in B's mind, he doesn't know he has to make ghusl. Says, وَلَا يجب, so not obligatory, right? وَلَا يَقْتَدِي أَحَدُهُمَا بِالْآخَرِ. However, in A's mind, if he's not going to make ghusl, he's not making ghusl on the basis that B needs to make ghusl. And B is not making ghusl on the assumption that A needs to make ghusl. So while both of them can validly pray by themselves, okay, while both of them can validly pray by themselves, if one of them prays behind the other without either making ghusl, it's not going to be valid. Does that make sense? Yeah? So according to A, he doesn't have to make ghusl because B does. And B doesn't have to make ghusl because A does. So when they're praying behind each other, one of them is not pure, right? So the prayer doesn't count for one of them. Does that make sense? Musa? Omar?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. فإن لم ينم فيه غيره لزمه الغسل. So it says, well, this person stays in this room once a week. He comes back a week later and he remembers that on Monday morning he ran out really quickly at 3 a.m. He has to leave at 3 a.m. to get to his whatever it is. He comes back late on a Friday evening and he sees traces of semen in his clothes that he wore on Sunday or the bed that he was in on Sunday. So now what happens? You say, oh, there's nobody else that wears those clothes and nobody else slept there. That was definitely from you. So therefore, you have to make up the prayers from Monday morning. Okay, make sense? Because it was not possible. So that means that you should have made a ghusl on Monday morning. You didn't know about it. But now you can see it's there. So therefore, your fajr didn't count, your dhuhr didn't count, etc. Unless you made a ghusl in between. Does that make sense? Because there's nobody else wearing those clothes. Yeah? Okay. So now, here's the question. He woke up at 3 a.m. He prayed Isha at 3:20 a.m. He got into his car at 3:30 a.m. and drove off. The last time he wore those clothes, okay? Uh, sorry. He 1 second. So he went to sleep on Sunday night at 10. He woke up at 1 and prayed Isha. He went back to sleep, woke up at 3, and then left. So he slept twice before he left. Okay? He knows that when he went to sleep at 10 o'clock, his bed was clean. His clothes were clean. Okay? So there's two possibilities. Excuse me. There's two possibilities here. Number one, when he was asleep between 10 and midnight, he had a wet dream and he didn't notice it. He prayed the Isha even though he didn't know he had to make ghusl, right? And then went back to sleep. Possibility number two, it happened after he prayed Isha. So he doesn't know when he prayed Isha, was the sperm, did he have a wet dream before or afterwards? He doesn't know. So it's possible that it happened between 10 and midnight. It's possible it happened between midnight and 3 when he woke up. He doesn't know. What's his obligation? Okay, it says what? He says, وَيَجِبُ إِعَادَةُ كُلِّ صَلَاةٍ لَا يَحْتَمِلُ حُدُوث مَنِيِّ بَعْدَهَا. So he says every single prayer that the semen, that the wet dream could not have happened afterwards. Right? So he knows Fajr definitely has to be made up. Because the last time you were there, that was before Fajr. So definitely Fajr has to be made up. And Dhuhr, and Asr, and Monday's prayers, Tuesday's prayers, etc. until you go back on Friday and finds out what actually happened. Okay? But what about Isha? It's possible they had to make ghusl before Isha and didn't. And it's possible he had to make ghusl after Isha. So his Isha could be valid or could be invalid. Okay, so what do we say? What are we going to assume?
Isha is valid.
Is valid. Why? What's the assumption? What's the principle?
اليقين لا يزول بالشك.
Okay. Al-yaqeen la yazul bi-shak. Certainty shall not live with a doubt. How is that connected to delaying something to the last possible time? How is that connected to? So it is true. The principle we say, certainty shall not be lifted by doubt. That is a principle in fiqh. It is also a principle in fiqh that we say something will always be ascribed to its last possible time. A death, a prayer, najasa coming on your clothes, um, income. What was it, you say, I'm not sure if I have to pay zakat on this money yet. Well, the default is you earned it the least possible time. Okay, so how are they connected? How is the concept al-yaqeen la yazul bil-shak, certainty shall not be lifted for doubt, with ascribing something to its last possible time? How are they connected? So do we know for sure that at 3 a.m. he had to make ghusl?
No.
Well,
Yes.
because when you woke up at 3 a.m., or so, that was the last time he slept. So and when he comes back on Friday and he finds it there, he knows that the last time you were sleeping in that bed was at 3 a.m. on Monday morning. So definitely from 3 a.m. onwards. But is it possible that happened at 2:30? It's possible. Is it possible that happened at 2? It's possible. 1? It's possible. Is it possible that happened at 10 p.m. when you went to sleep? Yeah, it's possible. All of these things are possible, right? So what is al-yaqeen? What we know is 3 o'clock. What we don't know is before that. So the principle an event shall be ascribed to its latest possible time. That's a principle in fiqh, but in reality, it's just an application of the principle al-yaqeen la yazul bi-shak. Certainty shall not live by doubt. Okay, does that make sense? So there's a
Yes.
difference between I don't know if I prayed Isha or not. I say certainty shall not live by doubt. If you don't know if you prayed Isha or not, then you didn't pray it. As opposed to I'm not sure if it was valid, right? That's two different things. If you're not sure if it was valid or not, the default is that it's valid. Or there's a difference saying, well, I'm not sure if it's valid because I know there was he was in Janaba. Yeah, but you don't know when he was in Janaba, right? And so there's a difference between questioning the prayer itself versus questioning the validity of the prayer, right? Does that make sense? So this concept is going to be applied across fiqh. In inheritance, two people die in a car crash. Which of them died first? We don't know. They cannot inherit from each other. Why? Because I don't know that one died before the other. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Right? And if it's possible, let's say, for example, there's three people who died, right? I know one person died a day before the other, but the other two, I'm not sure. Same kind of thing. You delay something to the latest possible time, right? Everything's delayed to its latest possible time. Income. When did you reach puberty? Someone's like, bro, I'm 70. I made Toba. So, well, you have to make up your prayers. Okay, when did you reach puberty? Bro, I have no idea when I reached puberty. Like, when was that? Right? Okay, when you were 20? No. When you were 10? No. Okay, so you start going up and you go to the latest possible time. The latest possible time that this person reached puberty, that's what you call, that's when they're gonna have to start making up their prayers. As opposed to whether or not they prayed those prayers. I don't know if I prayed Dhuhr 20 years ago. Okay, then you have to make it up because you don't know if you prayed it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Where's my PDF? Yeah. Okay. He says, لكن يندب إعادته ما أمكن كونه بعده. However, it's recommended. So it'd be recommended for him to make up the Isha, but he's not obliged to make up that Isha. Right? Same thing with anything else. Okay, so now a new issue. Okay. We're going to stop here, inshallah, at 10:03, inshallah. Okay. So who has taken, I know Musa, you've taken the defemina class. Has anybody else taken the defemina class? No? So a defeminine class is very important for tomorrow's next week's class, inshallah. So I will yeah, maybe we'll talk about it, inshallah, next week. Okay, inshallah. Sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad. I was asking about the defemina class. There's a class called defemina I did last year. Inshallah, we'll talk about it maybe next week. Okay, inshallah. Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My sincere apologies for me.